Okay, I'm going to be showing you today how to service a pedal. This is quite a standard pedal. It's not an expensive pedal. It came with my bike 6 years ago. I've serviced it a couple of times since then, but I'll be stripping it down, placing the bearings, repacking with grease, and yeah, I'll show you how it's done. So what you're going to need, optional, nitrile gloves, vinyl gloves, whatever takes your fancy. If you're replacing the bearings, some ball bearings, I purchased these off Amazon, some stupid quantity, I think it says 750 ball bearings, cost £6 I think it was on Amazon. These so far have been the perfect replacement for my other pedal, which I've already done. This is my left pedal. I've already done the right pedal. They've also done the bearings on my head race for my steering. So they seem to be quite a standard size, 5/32 of an inch in diameter. You'll probably need a socket set. These are long. They're not. You don't necessarily need these long ones. You can use a shorter, stubbier socket, like this. But I tend to use these a lot most of the time. And you might be wanting some grease. This is the grease I use. It's nothing special again. Cheap lithium multi-purpose grease. You'll see a syringe in there that allows me to inject grease into small cavities, and I'll be showing you how I pack this with grease all the way through this bar here, because I've drilled a small hole in the end of this cap that allows me to do that without taking the thing apart. I'll be showing you that in a minute. Another useful addition is this magnetic tray. Very useful, I've found. This one's from Wix, but I don't believe Wix do these anymore. But you can pick them up in most car shops, online as well. Not that expensive. Big magnet at the bottom, and then you can drop any bearings in, do your work like this, so the bearings drop out and become magnetized into the dish so they don't go flying everywhere. I'm putting new bearings in. Doesn't matter if I lose some, but it's nice to keep a count, to make sure I pack the right amount of bearings back in. Okay, so first things first, need to get this cap off. So use anything that allows you to get that cap off. Now I've got holes drilled in here, so it makes it a bit easier, he says. There we go. That's one cap off. As you can see, I've packed it with grease previously, and it's not looking too bad. Now in there, it's hard to see, but there are a cone nut underneath, a second nut that tightens down onto it, so it doesn't loosen off. So we need to get the top nut off first before we can get the cone nut off, which holds the bearings in, loose bearings. Okay, so I've got a number 13 socket here. What we need to do is grip that in there in order for us to undo the end of that socket, that nut there. So let's put that on. Now I've got a vise that I can put this into to hold it that way, which makes life easier, but not everybody's got a vise, so I'm going to attempt it. Never done it with this before, but should be able to do it with a normal pedal wrench. So I'll hold it tight, put that over there, and it says undo it. So that's come loose now. hold that. So that's the locking nut. There's a washer in there as well, that's acting as a spacer. Now the cone nut is actually bigger, I believe. $14mm from another socket set. So because we've removed that nut, which is the locking nut, we should be able to remove the cone. Yeah, it looks like the 14mm isn't the right size either, so maybe there's a special tool. So all I'm going to do is take the flat blade screwdriver, put it in there, and try and undo from the other end. It's not ideal, as I can't. So that's wedged in there, look, to stop the nut from spinning. There we go. Here's the washer, which has got flats on it as well to match the flats on the thing there. Anyway, hold that with my finger. Nice and dirty. Pop that out. Let's get all the bearings out. Ooh, there we go. So what I want to do is clean all this up, wash that out, get rid of any grit and whatnot in there, and what I will use is some white spirit in a small bucket. Small bucket, toffee popcorn. It wasn't me, honest, I didn't eat all that. No, I did. Tell a lie, I did. Put that in there. Scoop that in. Just put the whole lot in. I know I'm replacing the bearings, but I can't be bothered to pick them out. Just going to chuck that lot in there. Got the plastic end cap. Chuck that in as well. Got the main stem bar. It's got a letter on there, L, to remind me that it's from the left pedal. Clean it up. As you can see, you can probably see the flats on there now. Just give it a good dry off. Never simple. Let's get the majority of that out. There may be a better cleaner than white spirit. White spirit is all I've got. Happily receive comments on a better cleaner. White spirit's cheap, relatively cheap. There's the cone nut. What you want to do, I mean, you should know that when you're pedaling, if you've got an issue with grinding, now that could be grit inside there, or it could be because the cone, either on this nut or where the bearings are seated is badly corroded, worn, because you've allowed it to go beyond its reasonable life because it hasn't been greased and lubricated. This looks fine, which is good. That's the lock washer. You probably see the flats on that. And there's the locking nut. Now this is a challenge. What you probably want is a small brush, sacrificial brush, one that you're not going to use for decorating. Now you're never going to get all the grease out all the way through that hole. It's best endeavours. So let's get rid of the surplus white spirit. Again, it's an alloy, so it doesn't rust, but check the where the bearing seat, where the bearings would run, to see if it's damaged. That's fine. Let's get that clean. Let's have a closer look. It's looking a bit rough. But then, that's not where the bearing actually sits. The bearing sits in the outer section, where you can see it's smooth. So, I think that'll be fine. Pretty sure that'll be fine. Let's push that all the way through and see how much grease I can get out. Oh. There we go. Probably should have done that first. Lovely. Notice one hole is bigger than the other. So let's use the bigger hole. Get that cloth back in there. So, next step is to put the bearings in on this end first. Now, making sure you put it back together the right way. This is the deep end, as you can see, where both the cone nut and the locking nut and locking washer sit. This is the shallower end, which is where the bolt sits. It's got its own built-in cone race, which looks good. So what I'm going to do is put some grease in there so I can lay some bearings in. So using my super duper injection method. Quite messy. There's no clean way of doing this. Just put some grease in there. To allow me to bed new bearings in. Let's pour some bearings in here. Whee! Magnetised. So let's put these in. The idea of the grease is that it holds it in place. Effectively, all you want to do is get all the bearings in you can possibly fit, but it's important that there's a gap, almost probably a bearings width gap for them to race and move freely. So now I've done that, I'll push that through. There we go. Lovely. So now we're back this way. Now this is where the use of a vise is useful, because it holds it for you while you're trying to do this. Now this is easier. You don't need to put grease in this end at this point. All you want to do is drop the bearings in, and they'll obviously stay there. Okay, 10 bearings that end. Now, if you haven't put a hole in the cap like I have, this is the point where you want to put some grease in. I don't need to at this point because I'm going to squeeze, pack it with grease once I'm done. So cone nut. And there. So I'm going to use my screwdriver in there, because I can't get the socket set in properly. That's going to hold it while I do it the other end. Okay, now I've done it up till it's come to a halt. You do not do this up tight. This is very important. Let's put the washer in there in the meantime. Put the locking nut on. Okay, so again, make it a bit easier on myself. Just hold that. Okay, now what we're aiming for, there's play there, that's no good. There should be no play backwards and forwards. So what we need to do is tighten up the cone nut. So undo the locking nut slightly. Let's get that in there like that. Tighten it up. Now I'm turning that and it feels gritty. It's because it's too tight. So back off slightly. You want to back off slightly as well, because when you do the locking nut up, it also takes the cone nut with it slightly. So back off a tad. There we go. And then do the locking nut up. Now I've done this a few times and I never get it right first time. I've never ever I've done that locking nut up and thought, yep, that cone is spot on. I'm really happy with that. It's never happened. I've had to fiddle around, undo the locking nut, change the cone tightness just to make it feel right. That's not too bad. Still, there's no play, but it still feels a little gritty. Gotcha. So there's no play that way, but it's now smooth as. And make sure that's tight still. Don't have to go mad. Don't have to have it really, really tight. Yeah, see, it's gone again. Never simple. So because I tightened that locking nut up, it's tightened up the cone nut as well. So back it off again. Perfect. No movement that way. Good race that way. No grittiness. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so now I'm going to put the end cap back on. I'm going to get my syringe of grease. Yummy. Now, when I first did this, I stupidly put a hole in the middle. That's no good. The hole has to be off to one side. You'll find that this bolt is actually where the hole is in the middle. So put it to one side, just slightly smaller than the end of your syringe. Push the syringe in, start squeezing in the grease, twist it around, so we're going places. Keep your finger on the cap. You want to do it until grease starts popping out the other side. Still nothing yet. There you go. There's grease. It's just popped out the other side. Let's give that a clean up. And you're done. That is one serviced pedal. Before putting the pedal back on, put a tiny piece of grease on there. Like that. And we're done. There you go.